Do you feel that? Do you feel that? Oh, shit.
Wow! I love that song so much.
So good.
They're down with something and they're down bad with it. Hello, everybody, all one of you at the moment. It's me, Uber Mormon, and I'm super excited about tonight. I have Shalise from Cults to Consciousness on with me. Shalise,
Hey.
yes, it is you. What do you want to just have the floor for a moment? Like,
Have the floor.
how are you doing? How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. I'm not gonna lie, I'm a little brain foggy because this is my 4th podcast episode that I've recorded today, and it's amazing. Like I feel so grateful. I'm just like a little wired, so I'm just pumped to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yes, thank you for being here. Seriously, for everybody, I feel like I'm preaching to the choir here. Like there's nobody here who's going to know who I am who doesn't already know who you are, but like tell everybody about no, like it's for real. Like so tell everybody like what your channel is about. Um I have like 20 questions about just this, but like why did you start it? What made you feel like I need to go on YouTube and start putting videos? What caused that to happen, and then what's the overall theme of your channel?
Yeah, that's a great question. And it's kind of a long-winded answer, so I'm going to give like the super Cliff Notes version. Born and raised Mormon, left the church when I was like 20. I'm 32 now. And I had this really traumatic experience happen to me in 2018, which led me down a path of self-discovery, dark night of the soul, all of that stuff, which led me to Peru, which led me to doing ayahuasca with like a 2-week ayahuasca retreat, more like introspection and aha moments. And the medicine basically said, you need to write a book. And I was like, girl, you crazy. And she was like, you're going to do it. And I was like, okay. So I get home and I start writing the book proposal, trying to get it sold. It's still not. If you're if you're in publishing, let me know. But I realized I needed to start listening to more ex-Mormon content to make sure that the stuff I was writing about Mormonism in my book was accurate. Turns out I didn't know anything about Mormonism. At least I thought I knew about Mormonism. And so I started going down a lot of those podcast rabbit holes and following like Not Somali Mormon and commenting on their stuff. And through that, someone trolled me, someone who was starting a podcast called Mormons on Mushrooms podcast. And
Okay.
I went to their page and I was like, I don't know what you're doing, but I'm here for it because I was all about plant medicine and healing from Mormonism. They had me on as their first episode because they were brand new. They loved it, wanted me to stay. I was a co host with them for 2 years, and then they decided that they wanted to go back to just the 2 hosts. So they kind of booted me, and I was like, well, I really like doing this. It's a lot of fun. I enjoy connecting with guests and telling people's stories or asking them to tell their stories. So within a week, I started my own podcast, and it has been about 8 months now since I started, and it's going really well. And it's rewarding as it is exhausting, mentally, physically, emotionally, but ultimately the positive outweighs the negative. It's getting a great response, people saying that it's helping them, and that's why I'm here at the end of the day. It's really great to be able to do something that is helpful to other people.
That's amazing. So when were you in Peru, out of curiosity? Because
That
I
would
was
have
in
been.
Peru because the church sent me there, and now I'm curious if we
Oh,
happened.
really?
Yeah. So what years were you in Peru?
Well, it was just like three
It was
weeks,
one.
but I was
Okay. Okay. Yeah.
there 2019 in
Oh.
February,
Okay.
January, February.
Okay. I was there 14 to 16. So there was a
Oh, that's
gap where
awesome.
like anytime you were there doing ayahuasca retreats, I would have been somewhere knocking on doors. But so
Nice.
you left 12 years ago.
Yeah.
Okay. Whew, I can
Yeah.
still do math. That's amazing.
I'm
Um,
proud of you. Honestly, I'm glad you figured that out for me because I lost count.
every time I still haven't done the math for myself. I keep saying like I left around 2018 and I haven't done the math
The
yet,
actual
but
math.
yeah, but one day I will. I will, everybody. I promise. Okay, so do you have anything? Let's see here. You mentioned that you did a couple podcasts today. Before we get into the topic of today, which is avoiding drama, and I guess I'll admit to a little bit of clickbait here. It's not just Mormon drama, guys. It's all kinds of drama. So even if it's just like between you and the other people on the football team or the tennis team or whatever, this podcast will help with that. So it's actually a better video than you imagine. So it's reverse clickbait. But okay, so um, and now I've forgotten what I was going to say. So you did a couple podcasts today, and you've been doing this for 8 months. What's the video that you're like most excited about, or that you get the most positive feedback that somebody who's seeing you now for the first time, which again I doubt that's happening, for the first time, and you're like, go watch this video. This gives you a very good taste of what I'm all about. What would that be?
Mm, that's a really good question. I would say there's probably two, the two that just popped into my mind.
Okay.
The first being if you have any curiosity about Mormonism and you are a nevermo, if you've never been Mormon, or maybe you were just Mormon for a little while and you aren't really sure about all of the craziness going on there, I would recommend the video I did with John Dehlin, which is what he would do if he were the prophet. Because
Okay.
I listened to John Dehlin for a while with Mormon stories, especially when I was doing my research with podcasts and everything. And he always has really great answers to problems that come up in his interviews. And he often brings things to light that actually do end up changing the church. So he's famous for actually creating change. And so I'm like, John, you're more of a prophet than the current prophet because you receive revelation and the church changes once you put it on blast. So I thought it
Right.
would be a fun concept of what John Dehlin would do as the prophet of the Mormon
Mm.
church. And it just ended up being a very jam-packed episode of all of the things that the church needs to work on or get
Mhm.
rid of or change or do better. So I think that's a really fun informational episode. The second slash third, I guess you could say, would be the episodes with my mom. Those are the ones that just blew up and everyone loved them. And it gives an insight to my life and insight to two generations at once. And it's a good example of how a family can be happy and have a great relationship after leaving the church, which they try and tell you is not possible. So
Right.
it's how I got my mom to leave Mormonism, and does my mom regret leaving Mormonism? Something like that.
Okay. So there are two videos that you did with your mom and then one that you did with John, and those would be your three, like, watch this, get to know me.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, probably. I did two with John. Another one, the second one is just asking him questions like everything I wanted to ask John Dehlin, and that's a pretty fun one too. We
Okay.
go into some shocking things that he's heard in his time doing Mormon stories. And there's actually three videos with my mom. If you're interested in plant medicine, I don't know your audience necessarily, but we did do an episode how I got my mom to try psychedelics, or my mom releases guilt through psychedelics. And that's when I sent her to Peru, and I was like, you gotta
Mm,
go. And I sent her to do that. So yeah,
that's
lots
amazing.
of videos, homework.
Yes, lots of videos. So funny story actually about plant medicine. I haven't done anything, I haven't tried anything yet. I would love to, and I am going to. But the day that you released an interview with a psychedelic therapist,
Uh-huh.
so that was the first week that you and I connected and were like, we will make something eventually. And I was scheduled to go live with a psychedelic therapy student
Oh,
that
that's
same day,
right.
that exact
That's
same
right.
day. And then my thing fell through and it didn't work out, and it had to happen that weekend. But yeah, just kind of a funny thing. So I had to listen to yours because I thought it was happening in like 2 hours. Like I was going to interview this guy in 2 hours, and your thing was long, and I had a lot of things going on. So I listened to it at like 1.5 speed, and I was just like,
Yeah.
please don't repeat anything that she says in her video. Let's do separate. Like I wanted to make sure that like my content wasn't just being your content again,
Oh,
you know?
I mean, that's fine.
Well, yeah, but like as far as like information going into the ex-Mormon space, I thought like if I can know what she said now, then I can avoid it, and then there's twice as much information out there.
Yeah.
That's better for everybody. But I remember like I'm on the drive home just listening to like both of you talking faster than I've ever heard human beings communicate in my life. which maybe is like ironic because it was about psychedelic experiences, and I feel like that was a little, I don't know.
Ominous.
Yeah, but anyway, so with all of that being said, let's see. Yeah, let's get into this. So today we're going to be talking about something called the drama triangle, which is a thing that I learned in group therapy, and I'm learning about again as I'm studying to become a licensed clinical social worker. I'm almost done with undergrad, so I'm not actually to like the fun like classes. It's all still like math and stuff, but I'm also just reading a lot on my own time for this channel. This is my one day, this channel I'll just like type up all the stuff that I had to learn about, and that'll be what I do for my master's. So the drama triangle. So this book, I'm talking about this book today. Oops. The Cartman Drama Triangle Explained. And don't worry, nerds, I've made a slideshow so you don't even have to buy the book. But we're going to talk about this, and then I have way more questions for you. But for everybody who eventually gets to the live chat, I sometimes have a late blooming crowd. Just throw in your questions for Shalise, and we will get to them eventually. But yeah, here we go. So I'm adding this to the stream. Okay, so the drama triangle and Mormonism. Here we go, everybody. So first of all, let's start with the drama triangle is a way of so the drama triangle is a bad thing. I'm going to start by saying bad. And yes, bad as in like we shouldn't do it. Okay. I know a lot of people say like there's no such thing as good or bad, but thinking makes it so. That's very Hamlet of me to say that. But this is a bad way of getting your emotional needs or any type of needs met. It's a way of manipulating people into getting them to do the things that you want. And it's something that we all do naturally because it's what has been modeled around us for so many years. And so here I've put together a list of needs that we might get met using the drama triangle. And I'm hoping that all of this ties together right now. But Shalise, since you're the only person I can talk to, if anything I say doesn't make sense, just tell me, or
All right.
please ask me questions, because I don't know how well I'm actually going to present this. So we have emotional, we have basic human needs. People want to feel like they are contributing or that they are good at what they are contributing. They want to feel like they have autonomy in their life or with their decision making. They want to feel like they are significant either to themselves or others, hopefully firstly to themselves and then to others. They want to feel like they have purpose. They want to feel like they are growing. They want to feel like they have emotional safety, physical affection. You could insert the 5 love languages here. So if you could say that maybe you want somebody to do an act of service for you or tell you how they're feeling, like have a verbal communication of some sort. All of these count as needs that we could get met using the drama triangle, but as we will discover, we should get another way. Does all of that make sense so far?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, cool. Okay, cool. So the author or the creator of the drama triangle, he was a basketball player. And so the way that we need to conceptualize this moving forward is that while there are 3 different roles in the drama triangle, we're going to bounce around from role to role, even within single interactions. So you might start out persecuting somebody, which is one of the roles, but you could end the discussion as a victim or a rescuer. And so just because you're being one thing now, or because you commonly see yourself as one of these, it doesn't mean that you're not also doing the other ones 1 minute later, even though everybody does have like their thing that they kind of stick to. So this says Stephen Cartman was a basketball player in his youth, and he got the idea of the triangle from his analysis of strategies in the sport. Who stands where, who fiends, that might be a typo, who attacks, who defends. Think of a noisy, fast-moving basketball game rather than a static list of roles. Okay, so now we get to the roles. We have the persecutor, which is basically just an angry bully. We have the rescuer, who is basically approaching people who did not ask to be helped and helping them to make themselves feel better. And then we have a victim who is usually, how would I say this? Usually the butt of the jokes of the persecutor, but makes mountains out of molehills, feels believes the idea that they are helpless, and lets the rescuer come in and solve all their problems, leaving them more helpless than they were before, and solving actually nothing. So these are the three roles. What does
You know
that?
who, you know who that sounds like?
The Godhead? Wait, is that the
Or,
Godhead
well,
right
I
there?
mean that, yes. I was gonna say even more specifically, Joseph Smith. He
Mm. Yeah, with
persecuting and
the
saying
yeah.
like you are sinful. Oh, poor woman, let me rescue you by marrying you. And then, oh, I'm so persecuted.
Yes. Oh, everyone's mad at me for marrying their wives.
Everyone's mad at me.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's a good observation right there. He was, I mean, we could probably think of examples, and maybe this will be something that we could do throughout the video, of times when Joseph Smith, or insert any person here, was playing one of these roles, because like I said at the beginning, we're always playing one of them. There's a part of the book that I'm going to read. It's about 3 sentences. And I'm gonna even shorten it there, but it gives us a summary of each role here, which we're gonna dive into right now. But the persecutor means bully and hater. An internet troll, it means controlling, threatening, criticizing, passing crude judgments, sermonizing, belittling, or coming up with clever put downs. It can sometimes also mean physical violence. So that's the persecutor. We don't like that person, but sometimes the persecutor can't help but be the persecutor. We got the victim right here. It says, as a victim, you find yourself, or you think you find yourself, on the receiving end of such behavior. You take it to heart in some way. You get sustenance from it, and it feels right. Note that you are on the receiving end of persecution. You don't necessarily take it to heart. Then you're not playing the victim. And then we have the rescuer right here. Rescuer role means charging in on a metaphorical white horse and sorting out all the persecution and victimizing, but in a way that is more for making yourself look good rather than doing good, in a way that often makes people who are being rescued more helpless than they were before. Okay, so these are the roles. So can you see why this is applicable to not just Mormons and ex-Mormons right now?
Oh yeah, 100%.
All right. So now we've already gone over the victim. So we're going to go. Can you see my mouse?
Your mouse? No.
Yeah. Okay. I was pointing at things. I was about to start using it. So now I have to use my language. So at the
Yes.
top right, so we have, this is the victim slide. If you're just listening to this at some point in the future, pull it up, take a look. We have victim in the middle. We have how to stop. And then we have the thriver at the bottom. Now, the thriver is the exact opposite of the victim. Okay. And the how to stop is how we stop being the victim and become the thriver. So, like we've discussed here, the victim recedes into shame. They're overly critical of themselves. They feel that they have no agency or power. And they can control others by using guilt. Now, something that I think is interesting about the victim is they think that their suffering is something that makes them a good person. It makes them moral. Okay. So, and that's actually going to be a theme throughout all of this, is that the people are doing the things that they're doing because they actually think that it makes them a good person. So how can we stop? Take an honest inventory of yourself. That means don't think that you're worse or better than you are, but try your best to see yourself as you are. Count your blessings. Speak your needs. Ask yourself, what would be a healthy way to get what I want? So a victim, we've all seen this before. You're in an argument with a loved one, and you say, like, you have a meltdown and you just run away, or you leave, or you just turn around and you stop talking to them. And what you're wanting them to do is to reach out to you and to comfort you and say, I'm sorry, I overreacted. That was not right of me, yada, yada, yada. But that's what we want, but that's not what we're asking for. And we're not asking for in a healthy way. And if we do that, the type of help that we get is actually just going to be a person who is now validating us to make themselves feel better and to make us stop. Okay, so now we're inviting somebody to rescue us. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm just over here going like, I think I've done this before.
We all
I need
have.
to stop being a victim.
Yes, no, we've all done this. It's so, that's why I'm like, why doesn't everybody know what the drama triangle is? It's so good. But
Yeah.
so you ask yourself, what would be a healthy way to get what I want? So let's go back to the you're in an argument with a spouse or a loved one situation. You say, hey, this got really intense. I don't really feel like talking right now. I need to be alone. I'm going to go into a different room. Please don't follow me. I'll come back when I'm ready.
Mm-hmm.
That's perfect. That you're saying what you need and you're not inviting anybody to rescue you, but you're setting a boundary and you're saying, don't come follow me. I will come back when I'm ready. And that way you when you rejoin to finish the conversation, you rejoin on the terms that we're both now ready to proceed. So that is victim in a nutshell. Let me think. Am I missing anything about the victim? Does anything about the victim stand out to you other than you have seen yourself do this a time or two?
I think it's important to call out all of these different traits of the victim, and also just being aware of a healthy way to, because it's okay to have your feelings hurt, right? It's okay to feel victimized because people can victimize other people. So it's not saying
Right.
you're just being a baby or being overly sensitive and stop being a victim, because that now we're victim shaming, right?
Right.
But when something wrong actually does happen, it's okay to feel hurt by it, but then the how to stop is really nice, where you can go, okay, that hurt my feelings. What are some ways that I can communicate that I feel like I'm being hurt in a wrong way, or I've been wronged? Now this is how I want you to treat me moving forward. I think it's also important to recognize that sometimes people don't have that luxury of communicating in a healthy way. I think it's important to know that there are some victims who aren't able to speak to the persecutor and say, I don't like how you talk to me that way. And maybe it is best for them to run out of the room and separate themselves. So I think all of this is just great to talk about so that we have a full perspective and a full scope of the different roles, and maybe a healthier way. If we can't directly approach the person who is hurting us, then we know how to internally do better for ourselves.
Yes. Yeah. The last point on the how to stop, which I didn't read, but I should read, is find a coach, not a rescuer. So within the schema of the drama triangle, everything has its opposite. So the opposite of the victim is the thriver. The opposite of the rescuer is the coach. And the main difference between the coach and the rescuer, even though we will get into this, is a coach helps people who ask for help. And they do it because the person needs help. Whereas a rescuer is just going in. So you say that you relate with the victim. I'm a rescuer. That's the thing I stop myself from doing the most often is solving problems that other people did not ask me to solve, and essentially taking their agency or their like ability to just do simple things for themselves. I'm like, oh, well, this is easy. I'll just do it right now. Right.
Yeah.
And so that's my drug of choice. And thanks to this information, I now recognize it. And I just, why am I stepping in right now? And then I slowly improve over time. But yeah, no, I think those are all really good points. So yeah, now we'll get into the rescuer. And like I said, this is me. So I'm speaking to me. Provides support when doesn't want to. Steals everyone's problems. Helps before asked. Yeah, we've gone over that. Makes others more dependent. Slowly becomes resentful for biting off too much. So if you are a rescuer, you can't just let people solve their own problems. You have to solve them. And then you slowly become the victim because you think that you have the weight of the world on your shoulders because you're doing everybody's shit for them. But
And
nobody
not
asked you
getting any
to.
thanks.
Yes. And guess what? You you don't really deserve thanks because you're really not helping them. You're making everything worse. And again, I'm speaking to me. All right. Feels moral. So again, the rescuer feels like this is hard, but I'm solving everyone's problems. I'm the good guy here, right? Everybody feels the good guy, like they're the good guy. And then they just validates and they're taking bait. So I'm sure we've all seen this at some point in our life where somebody goes like, "Oh man, I'm such a bad singer." And they're just
Yeah.
like, wait, so that's
Yeah.
bait,
The fishing.
right?
The
Yeah.
fishing for
Yeah.
compliments.
Exactly. So that's rescuer bait right there. And a rescuer would say, "Oh my God, are you kidding me? You're the greatest singer alive, right?" Like, not only do you compliment them, but you give them one that's not even truthful. Where a coach would say,
Mm,
like, does that make sense? So we're
yeah.
not even like in the realm of reality. We're just like trying to make everybody feel good with no regard for like how could that
Truth.
inflate, yeah, exactly, the truth. So that is who the rescuer is. Or sorry, I shouldn't actually say that. That is the role. That's the thing that defines the role of the rescuer. So a very simple way to stop is ask yourself, why are you helping right now? Were you asked to help? And then realize you don't have to save people to be good.
Mm-hmm.
You That has nothing to do with your worth as a human. You don't have to get intertwined with everybody's problems in order to be a good person. So I've gone over this a bunch of times by now already, but the coach helps when they are asked to help. They set boundaries for how far they are willing to go. So they're not just going to like say yes to everybody and then curl up in a ball 3 weeks later because they've totally neglected their job and eating and the basic things that they actually need to do to take care of themselves. They understand that you actually need to like be in a safe, secure place to extend help to other people. And then they treat people like they are able to solve their own problems. So much like if you go to see a therapist, they're not just going to say, "Well, stop doing this and start doing this, and then you're good." They'll, "What do you think you should do?" They're trying to help you arrive at the conclusion that feels right for you.
Mm-hmm.
And so you're not only are you helping people solve their problems, but you're also helping them become the type of person who can solve more problems.
Yeah. Who
So
can self-regulate?
exactly. So what are your thoughts? We've now arrived at my drug of choice here and we're summarizing. What are your thoughts about the rescuer? Where have you seen this?
Yeah. What popped into my head actually when you were talking about you don't have to save people to be good is don't be Superman, right? Nobody
Mm-hmm.
really asks Superman to help, just swoops in. And
Yeah.
so then I started thinking, oh, the drama triangle is kind of like Superman, damsel, and villain, right?
You caught on to that
The
very
three.
fast, actually. That's usually the way that people explain this. And
Oh,
yeah.
nice.
Yeah, so
Yeah, that's.
you're brilliant. You're brilliant.
Oh,
Yeah, no,
thank
it's
you.
so archetypal, right?
Yeah,
Yeah. Um
yeah, it is.
and you
I
can see
definitely
now why it's so
see.
ingrained. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Oh no, you're good. Um, I was just gonna say I can definitely see this in religion, in a religious context. The rescuer is usually the people that create the problems. So it's the religion telling you, like persecuting you, saying you're not good enough, and then being like, but we can save
Yes.
the day. Like, don't you
Yes.
worry. You didn't ask for help with masturbation, but I got you.
Yes.
And then when you don't accept the help or you're like, no, I'm good, then they become the victim and they're like, oh, nobody likes us. And they
Yeah.
always say that we're bad in cults. That's me.
Yeah.
But, sometimes they are a little culty.
Yeah. No, no, that's I think the most common direction to go in terms of this chart is to persecute and then rescue. And then persecute and
Mm,
then rescue. And I think very astutely you point out that that is basically what modern religions are doing. They're telling you that you have a problem and then they're saying, "But come to us and we'll solve that problem that you didn't know that
yeah.
you had until we diagnosed it." It's like
Yeah.
a very it's like going to the worst mechanic who's like, yeah, no, the whole car is bad, but I know just the guy, and it's going to cost you all of your money. You're going to need to reverse mortgage the house for sure, but I know the guy to do, and you should be
Uh-huh.
skeptical of people who are telling you that you have something wrong with you and then offering the solution to the thing that only they thought was wrong with you?
Well, yeah. I mean, it's really just basic marketing. That's
Yeah.
all marketing is,
Mm-hmm.
hey, you have a problem, we have the solution. And
Yep.
then religion takes a step further and creates the problem and then gives you the solution.
Yes. Yes. And so you really can see, like, these are such deep roles that it's incredible that how do I say this? Of course we're all stuck in the drama triangle. Of course we are. This is our bread and butter. You know what I mean? This is what we've been watching on TV since we were 3. Like, this
Right.
is Bowser steals Peach, Mario gets Peach. This is that. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
you said, this is the villain, Superman, damsel in distress. That's all this is. Of course, we are all stuck in the drama triangle. It's happening under our noses. But the hope is information like this makes it easier to recognize it and back out. So,
Yes.
and we're actually mostly done with the slideshow now. I tried to keep it short. So now we're going to go over the persecutor. And by the way, so Marty from Where Will You Go? She's with LDS Discussions. She has a weekly podcast. She's awesome. She says, I love how you're framing this in a self perspective way. It feels easy to point at someone else. Yeah, that's, I mean, I'm the first to admit what my drug of choice is, and it's rescuing. And yeah, it feels good to get it out.
Yeah. Yeah.
So persecutor, they bully and shame others. They believe, so this is a belief actually that the victim and the persecutor share, is that life is a zero sum game and there can only be one winner. So in this case, the persecutor is the winner and the victim is the loser. And the
Mm.
victim believes that, which is why they stay, part of the reason that they stay down in the drama triangle. And the persecutor believes that, which is why they are so aggressive, because they could lose it all, right? So
Yeah.
we'll get back to that in a while, which is why I pointed out. They feel that their anger is righteous. Well, would you look at that? All 3 people believe that what they're going through is righteous.
Yeah.
Um, so, and then also, so this is kind of like a shadow trait. So everybody has a without getting too far into Jung right now, the shadow is the, you're probably more well versed in Jung than I am, right? I think I've heard
No,
you
I
talk
bet
about.
I
Oh.
think you are. I mean, I may have mentioned it a few times, but go ahead.
So for Jung, everybody has a shadow self. This is a very, very, like, we're on like page 1 of Jung with this. So this isn't quite deep yet, but everybody has a shadow self. And the shadow self, it's not the bad boy. Everybody thinks that, oh, my shadow kicks puppies and wears leather and rides motorcycle. Like, it's the archetypal bad boy with black hair and all of that, right? That is not what the shadow is, okay? The shadow is anything that was repressed out of us when we were younger. So men, I know guys like this who they got made fun of when they cried when they were little boys. So now they don't cry. Okay, so their shadow self cries. Does that make sense? So it's
Mm.
just the things that have been repressed that now don't have a healthy way to come out. That's what the Jungian shadow is. And so for the persecutor, almost always sympathy or like a softer side has kind of been repressed out of them from the time they were kids. Usually persecutors are men, but that's not always the case. So how to stop? Ask yourself, why do I insist on being right about everything? Right? I have this belief that life is a zero sum game. So if I'm wrong or if I'm right, then everyone else is wrong. So I can be right and I can feel good about that. But why do I insist on this? What am I protecting? Question your anger. Why am I so angry? Why do I feel the urge to like knock people down all the time? And then fear is usually the reason for that. So then question your fear. What are you afraid of? Oh, you're afraid that you're going to lose your standing, that you're going to be nothing now? Well, that's not the case, because life isn't a zero sum game. So stop seeing things that way. There can be a whole bunch of winners because we're all playing different games. So that
Mm.
is, yeah. So what are your feelings or thoughts about
Yeah.
all of that?
I feel like the persecutor is often just afraid of becoming irrelevant. And
Mm,
so they have to insert themselves into every situation and not only insert themselves as a rescuer would, but insert themselves on top of the situation so they make it known that they're in charge. Because if they're not in charge, then they're not relevant anymore. And I think that's probably their number one fear is people not giving them attention or people just forgetting about them, or maybe that makes them feel unlovable when all eyes
mm-hmm.
are not on them and they just want to be in the forefront. And in order to do that, in most cases, you have to step on some people to get to the top and make everyone listen to you instead of what the challenger is, right? Let's
Right.
see,
Right.
standing up without
Yes.
being overbearing, where you
Uh-huh.
can speak out without stepping on everybody to get someone's attention. So
Right.
lead us into the challenger.
I would be happy to lead you into the challenger. Man, we should start a show. Um, no, so the persecutor understands two things very, very well. Number one, if you're not first, you're last, from Ricky
Mm-hmm.
Bobby.
Yeah.
Number two, the opposite of love is not hate. It is apathy. They just want to, they, even if they're hated, they just want people to feel strong feelings about them and for them to be up there. Um,
Yeah.
so the challenger isn't worried about what other people think about him or her. The challenger is just, the challenger knows who they are. You know what I mean? The challenger is content. They they state what the expectations are. If you're somebody's boss and there's a project that everybody is chipping in on, you make sure that everybody knows what their portion is, and you make sure that everybody knows when the work needs to be done. But then if that isn't met, you don't go out in a rage and belittle them. You offer choices to them. You say, well, these are our options now because the work didn't get done. So maybe you need to, I don't know. I don't know why this is the example that came into my head, but maybe you need to stay later. Maybe we need to divvy it amongst people again. Like maybe we gave you too big of a portion. But it's state your expectations beforehand and then offer choices if those fail, understanding that there's a good chance that they might fail. So with that, I think we're pretty much done. So your role has no impact on your worth. You're not good because you're a victim. You're good because you are you. You're not good
Mm.
because you're a rescuer. You're good just because you're you. And same goes for the persecutor. So 3 quick tips to drama proof yourself. So Exmos, listen up. No, I'm still talking to everybody here, but language like all, always, none, and never, that is, according to the book, that is victim language. You always do
Mm.
this to me. You're never there. You never supported me. I bet that's not true. I bet one time they supported you, right? So when we overgeneralize, when we're using words like all, always, none, and never, we are probably speaking from a place of victim, and we should quickly ask ourselves, wait, do I mean to say all right here? Do I mean to say always?
Yeah.
As a fellow, I I almost just called you a fellow victim, but that's not what I
Oh.
mean. Like as a victim role player in the Cartman
Yes.
drama triangle, what do you think about that specifically for somebody who says like, yeah, I think I resonate with the victim side of things a
Yeah.
little more?
I do that sometimes. Like we're planning a wedding right now and I'm like,
Mm,
"Babe, you always do this. You always
yeah,
push off
yeah,
all the things we got to do." And he's like, "Babe, I just want to play poker." And I'm like,
yeah.
"Okay. Sorry." So I definitely do that. So I what I've learned from your presentation is that I need to be assertive in what I want without being too dramatic and without using the all, always, none, never language. And that's what I've learned.
Okay. Oh, hey, that's a really good. I'm so happy to hear that. This person, Emath, says that they always overgeneralize, and that is
Oh, I
truly
feel you.
tragic, Emath. Yeah, I bet you always do. Um, okay, so these don't all necessarily go with like victim and then persecutor and then rescuer. These are just general tips. But stop catastrophizing. This one also kind of goes at victim a little bit. Remember that the worst case scenario is not the most likely scenario. So, like I
Yeah.
said, and Marty thought that was funny, but the what am I trying to say here? So the victim likes to make very big things out of very small things. And it's not their fault. They're not doing this intentionally. They believe this idea that the world is a zero-sum game and they are losing. And so one thing causes the next thing, which causes the next thing, and then it just, man, it just feels tough. So remember that the most likely thing is probably an average outcome for everybody involved. The most likely scenario is not that you get hit by a car and then like that car swerves into a train and then that, you know what I mean? Like it's,
Yeah.
we tell ourselves that and we have anxiety about that, but usually that's not what happens. So the last thing, stop personalizing. Stop assuming that you are playing a bigger role in the situation than you are. So the easiest example to give with this is, let's say there's a new couple, they've just started dating. All of a sudden, out of nowhere, the guy kind of stops texting the girl. This is like a high school couple that I'm imagining, by the way. So, and this may or may not be me. No, I'm just kidding. So the guy just out of the blue stops texting the girl, and the girl is freaking out. She's like, "What did I say? Was it that last text?" She's overthinking so bad right now, and it's been like 2 days. Still hasn't heard from him. She's like, "He's mad at me. He never wants to talk to me again. I feel so bad about this." Like really like taking it in the self-worth, you know? And then she finds out on Monday that he was grounded and his phone was taken away or something like that. Or his phone was lost, right? So she painted this picture where she was the center of it all and it was all her fault and she ruined her own life. She self-sabotaged. But
And
she
she
actually had,
catastrophized.
and she catastrophized. Yeah, no, she did bad here, and she's like, he never texts me. She did all three, but like at the end, like I don't really need to tie this together with a knot, but like at the end, none of it was actually her fault. It was totally something else. And so remember, if you want to drama proof yourself, that we don't quite play the huge role. We're not really like Captain Marvel in a movie. You know, we're kind of like the I forget what comedian said this, but he's like, I'm the guy on stage right now, and this isn't even my movie. Like, I'm comedian number 3 in the like at the end, you know? I'm comedian number 3. I'm not even named. The real story is in the back with some like girl and her girlfriends like out to party for the night or whatever. And like that's the real story tonight. Like just take a chill pill. For me, there's a whole bunch of like relief in not seeing myself as the hero of the story. Like I'm just a character off to the side doing my own thing, you know? And so we're not really, yeah, don't personalize. So that's the whole presentation. I would love to hear your thoughts. I hope that I
Well
didn't way
done.
over talk. I feel like I
No.
did.
No, I think it
Okay.
was necessary because I was not familiar with the drama triangle. So I think you did a great job. And I
Okay, thank
think
God.
the overall, if I could sum it up, it would be to just ground yourself. Because when you're
Hmm,
grounded, you're not in your anxiety, you're not in
right.
your fear, you're not in your I need to be relevant, and you're also not in your like spacey whatever it is like worry brain up here, right? You're
Mm-hmm.
present. You can take inventory. Oh, things aren't actually that bad. Oh, I'm actually safe in my physical body and everything's fine and I can stop feeling so persecuted. And it also gives you a better perspective on the other players in your life when you realize, oh, they've got things going on too, just like the girl
Right.
in the story. They've got their own lives that they're dealing with, and it's not all about me. So well done.
Thank you, thank you. In pursuit of uh, a search for, how do I say this, practical advice, what's your favorite way to ground yourself? What do
Just
you?
taking some breaths. I mean, I I do it sometimes, and I've been doing it while we've been talking too, because sometimes I get very like, I just got to get everything out, and then I'm not
Yeah.
breathing. And that's also what can make me get in my head sometimes. So
Mm.
just taking a nice breath and just
Should
like,
we all do one together?
let's just
Just
take a
everyone.
breath. Ready?
Yeah.
A 3
Uh,
second. Ready?
all right.
Go. So nice. And just
Yeah, that
like
was
being
good.
in your body,
Yeah.
taking inventory of myself. How do I feel? Does my back hurt? Do I need to stretch? And also just putting my feet on the bare ground is nice, or
Yeah.
like touching a tree, and just taking a minute, because we don't do that very often, right? In
Yeah.
life, in the modern world, there's not a lot of time to just be. Even if we are at home, we tend to fill our space with screens and distractions that don't let us be present. So I think just taking a beat is my
Yeah.
favorite advice for grounding.
Yeah. That's good. It was the, let's see, what's his name? Eckhart Tolle Oprah podcast made me
Oh.
he gave this advice. He said, close your eyes. I'm sure I've said this way too many times on my own channel at this point, but close your eyes, put your hand out into space, and just feel your life in your hands. Just
Hmm.
just feel your hand floating. It's not touching anything, but you do feel your presence and your awareness inside your hand. And then what I like to do is just move that spot around my body. So like I'll move it to my like I'll even kind of turn it into a game, which is probably the opposite of grounding, but like, can I feel my right ear?
Yeah.
Like, can I put my whole like presence into like a rant, like my big toe? You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
Just bounce it around
Awareness.
everywhere and like, oh wow, I'm alive in all of these places. That's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let
I mean, that's really just what meditation is, right? And
Yeah.
that's a good way to fall asleep if you can't, is like
Hmm.
really focusing on every part of your body from your head to your feet. Like literally thinking, I'm going to relax my forehead. I'm going to relax my eyebrows. I'm going to relax my eyeballs, and just like go all the
Hmm.
way down your body. And eventually you'll just feel like you're sinking into your bed.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, let's see. We have a couple people saying this is actually good advice. Sam Menard. Is it Menard or Menard? I'm going to just say Sam. Uh, Another thing is to avoid assumptive language. Instead of saying you hate me, I feel like when you do that, it hurts me.
That's such a good one.
That is a good one. And that actually reminds me of something. What is this called? 7 Principles for a Healthy Marriage. It's something like that. I'll put it in the description, but I got so I actually have mixed feelings about this advice, Sam. Not because it's bad advice, but because your partner is smart enough to hear you say that and go, "Yeah, I'm hurting you." You know what I mean? They'll jump to it, especially if it's tense. But it is better to speak that way. The advice from 7 Principles was, it might have been 14 Principles. I'm sorry, whoever wrote that book. But the advice was, this is all good. How do I say this? So this is usually the type of thing that you focus on if you've ever been to couples counseling, is stopping the assumptive language, right? Using I feel language instead of you, accusatory language.
Mm-hmm.
And the point of this book, and I thought it was so interesting because this guy, I know that none of this makes sense because I can't remember the actual goddamn title of the book, but I will put it all later and it will make sense. He said he got to a point where he could actually predict with like a 95% accuracy if a couple was going to get divorced or stay married based on like watching them in an experiment for 12 hours. It was something crazy like that.
Oh.
He was right every time. And what he said is, if we want to save a marriage, we can teach people to fight better, which is what this is, or we can teach people to improve their friendship, which is why they got married in the first place. So this is, Sam, I don't want you to think that I'm telling you this is bad advice, because it's really good advice. But this is how to fight better. This is how to have a fight where you're not accusing. A whole other topic that would get fun to get into would just be, how do you increase the friendship and the play in a relationship? Because that's what made you fall in love with one another in the first place. and that is what your whole foundation of your love is resting on. And so any way that you can increase that is the way to do that. I feel like I, for some reason, was splitting hairs for no reason. Nobody asked me to do that, but that made me think of that book, and I was like, oh yeah, that was such good advice. um, I'll post the name of that book later, so it will make sense. Let's see. I got a bad score on my test. I will never graduate. I know, because we totally are our test scores, and so we will never graduate. Yeah, these are good topics for a Sunday. Yoga breathing. Somebody said eating whole food. Chandler said, I like grounding myself with the five senses. Yeah, 5 things you can see, 4 things you can hear, 3 things you can touch, or 3 things touching your skin, 2 things you can smell, 1 thing you can taste. That's anything that just brings your, and that one is kind of fun because you're like widening your scope of things until it's all centered here, which if you wanted to go straight into breaths after that, you are, yes. Thank you, Chris. It was Paul Gottman. And
John
what?
Gottman.
Yeah. Did I say Paul?
Yeah.
That was my dyslexia coming through. I put the P, whatever. Chris, could you tell me, is it 14 or 7 principle? What is the name of the book that I'm bastardizing on live YouTube right now? The thing that I like, going back to this advice, you end on your mouth and then you could go right into breaths from there. It's kind of convenient. You're already focused on your face, for lack of a better word. So yeah, I have a bunch of questions for you if you want to do some questions. Does that sound cool?
Let's do it.
Okay.
Let's do it.
7 principles, says Chandler. Thank you. Will someone just type the full ass title of that book into the chat so I can be vindicated? All right. So, all right. So, you said that you left the church 12 years ago, and you've said that and that your mom has now left.
Yes.
So, how long did it take for your mom to leave, and what was it like before she left?
Yeah, so I was out of the house, so I was in college. So there was never like an awkward family dynamic where I left and she hadn't. And I will say, even if I was still in the house, it probably wouldn't have been a thing. Like some of my siblings weren't really about the church, and she was very respectful of their choices. Uh, but I was in college. I was the one that brought her questions because I was having a really hard time out there in the singles ward, and I did a bunch of research and realized, oh, a lot of this is made up. So I went to her with my binder of questions, and she went to her leaders and stake presidents, and they couldn't answer it. So I didn't know that she was doing her homework after I had brought her my questions. I just decided to bounce because I was like, well, if this isn't true, then that's not true, and the whole thing's just made up. And so I was ready to be done with it, and I don't think I really vocalized that to her. So she actually had the coming out call to me. Her and my dad called me, and they were like, oh, just want you to know, like, we have been going to church, and we still love you, and we'll do whatever it takes if you want to get married in the temple. And I was like, oh, you're good. I left. And they're like, oh, that's a relief. So she probably left. It was like 6 to 8 months after I had left. And yeah, I mean, it was great. We could talk about all the things that we figured out.
Yeah.
And I didn't even know like a quarter of the information that I do now. I really only had to find out about 4 things that I didn't agree with. And then that was enough for me to leave.
That is in the grand scheme of like ex-Mormonhood, for lack of a better word, like 8 months is not that long. So like you almost did the whole, like, not that you did it together because it happened separately, but like there's still so much conversation and healing and like, can you believe we did, you know what I mean? There's so many of those conversations going on right after you leave that well surpass the 8 months. It's cool. So you kind of got to have those conversations with your parents where it's
I mean,
did that happen?
We didn't jump into the can you believe we used to do this thing until years later. It
Okay.
was kind of like, let's just pretend that didn't happen for a while. And not because we were avoiding it. I think we just were excited at the freedom and just feeling, I don't know, liberated and wanted to just enjoy life for a while without thinking about Mormonism at all.
Mm,
And it was probably not until I started doing a lot of the research on my own. Well, things had come up here and there throughout the years, but since I started doing the research and listening to more ex Mormon podcasts and starting my own, that's when I would call her and be like, "Did you know this? Did you know that?" And she's like,
mm-hmm.
"What?" Just so many things that we were unaware of. And yeah, so that's why I have her on the podcast too. And people really enjoy her conversations.
Yeah. So what was the thing? I think it's funny to ask this question because everybody has such a different answer. After you already were sure that it wasn't true, what was still the most shocking piece of information? Like I'll give you an example. My friends is that we found out on some BYU, like I don't even know how deep we were into BYU's website for this to happen, but the guy, some man back in Joseph Smith's time, essentially repoed his house, and his name was Laban.
Oh,
Yeah. So like, and we were just like, what? And the guy's name is Laban. Like, we just laughed about it for hours. And so I'm curious, like, what was kind of one of the more silly, like, all right, I gotta hand it to you. Like, this is starting to become incredible. Like, did you have anything like that that you learned that just kind of blew your mind?
oh my gosh. There's so many. I mean, most of them are not laughable. They're like really
Mm.
shocking and disturbing.
Okay.
So I'm trying to think of like the funny ones. Uh oh, you know what? Not Somali Mormon podcasted an episode recently when they were talking about correlation. I don't remember which episode, so I'm sorry I can't point you to it, but they were talking about areas in Joseph Smith's like around his house and then names that he put in the Book of Mormon, kind of like the Laban thing, I
Oh,
guess, where
yeah.
like he would take a name of a river close by and add a couple syllables and put it in the Book of Mormon to where it's like
Yeah.
really silly and you're like,
Or just spell it
really?
differently.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
just like do the weird spelling. I thought that was pretty funny.
Yeah. It's,
Um,
oh man, especially when like Mormons, I mean, I've seen the NHM like everywhere. Like, this is a big deal. There's a place on the way from Jerusalem out to the sea called NHM, and they called it Nahum. And so that's proof right there. Have you heard the NHM thing?
no.
Oh yeah. So it's just funny because like there are so many of those examples that you're naming that are like Joseph Smith clearly read a name and tweaked it and put it in the Book of Mormon. And
Yeah.
there are like 14 of those examples. And then NHM appears one time. And by the way, that's not the only place in the world you can find it. It's like 13 other places in the world, but like NHM, we got him, boys. The like drop in. The Book of Mormon is true. That's funny. Chowder says, stunning how many left and are still on the official number count. My entire family is out, but it's all still counted. Yeah, I mean, that's
Mm.
crazy. I know it's not 16 million, but and then he
Oh,
says
well, no.
also, no. My marriage was great when we were in the church, still great out of the church. Hell yeah. That is good
It's
stuff
great
right there.
news.
Okay, let me think. So we already talked about that question. What do you feel? This is going to be a loaded question because it's been a long time, but what is your number? So since leaving the church, the lesson that would be your takeaway. This might be too broad of a question.
Like what did I take away from being Mormon?
Mm, kind of, but like in your 12 years of non-Mormonism, what's
Uh-huh.
the life lesson that keeps like teaching itself to you? Do you feel like you have something that life is just banging you over the head, like be more humble, be more patient, like and how is that happening?
A life lesson.
I'll give you mine.
You, okay, go
Things
ahead.
get worse if you don't address them when they're small. I keep
Got
learning
it.
that like if I don't address a problem that's very tiny that I know is going to be a problem, it will become a massive problem in like 4 years. And so like, let's just solve small problems before they become big problems. That's been like a reoccurring theme in my life since I left the church, but I'm curious what yours is.
Yeah. Since I left, I feel like if there's anything that the church taught me inadvertently, it's how to research something.
Mm,
Because I mean, search, ponder, and pray, right?
yeah.
I searched, pondered, and prayed all my life, and then once I just started to think, wait, is this really true? I really learned how to search, ponder, and pray.
Yeah.
And I became really great at going down rabbit holes and doing investigative work. And since then, I've used those skills many times. Just staying curious, I think, is the biggest thing.
Yeah.
Always stay curious. Always know that you don't know everything and be open to new information.
That is very good advice. That is, yes. Thank you. Thank you. That's such a
Yes.
good tip that we learn. Like when we're scrambling for all our life to like, is it true? Please, is it true? And you're just researching, you're finding the most obscure articles on BYU's website about people named Laban. You know what I mean? Like you're deep in it. And that's such a, not everybody has that, like, I almost want to say shrillness, like that urgency, you know? And that's such a,
Yeah.
to be able to apply that to whatever you choose is like a superpower.
Yeah, I think it's helpful in anything. Just like being curious about people that you're going to be in a relationship with, whether that's romantic or friendship,
Yeah.
being willing to see all of the information and all of the potential red flags instead of just going in blind with blind obedience like we were taught, just do whatever they tell us to do. We can actually use our intuition and use our voices and use our brains and be like, is this right for me? Or
Yeah.
is it not right for me?
Mm-hmm. And just only asking yourself, not like, I need to talk to my bishop if this is going to be right for me or not, but just like,
Yes.
I'm going to figure this out for myself because I can do that for myself.
Yep. Make your own decisions.
Yes. Okay. What was your favorite thing about being Mormon?
My favorite thing about being Mormon was that I was special. I thought I was
Mm.
special. Sorry, my headphone keeps like slipping out. It's driving me
Oh, you're
crazy.
good.
Um, I loved the idea that I was chosen by God to be in the one true church and that I was that special that I just happened to be born into the right one. But that's what everyone thinks, right? Wow,
Yeah.
what a coincidence that I was born into the only true religion on the planet. I just remember feeling special and enjoying that I was special and wanting other people to become special and get baptized and all of that. And maybe that's carried over into me wanting to always be different and unique. And I don't know. I think maybe it's a good thing, maybe it's a bad thing, but I do enjoy being unique.
Yeah. Yeah. That, I like how, as you were painting the picture of like believing that you were special as a Mormon, none of it wasn't malicious. It was just like, I have been told this. And now I see you kind of, I don't know. I'll ask you what you think about this. But
Yeah.
I have been told this and I want other people to have it. But I
Yeah.
don't. So what do you think about that? Because there's this, sometimes there's this temptation, I'll call it, in ex-Mormonism to be like, they think they're special, they think they're better than everybody. But I actually don't think that it's that type of special. It's the kind that you just described, where it's like, this is awesome and I like feeling this way. And I think other people should get this chance too. So
Yeah.
it's good.
Well, that's a very kind observation. I appreciate that.
I
But
try to make
yeah,
really calm, kind observations.
I think that's what it was. I just felt so grateful. And I remember praying and saying, wow, thank you, God, for helping me see and belong to the one true church on the planet. And,
Hmm.
it's just, and maybe it's also because I enjoy being right. So
Yeah.
I was like, wow, look at this. I'm right. And I want to show
Yeah.
other people the truth
Hmm.
and all of that goodness. But spoiler
Yes.
alert, we're all special and it doesn't matter what religion you belong to.
Yes. Yes. That is well said. Okay, we got two more good questions.
Okay,
I try to keep these to about 60 minutes, so I think we're doing perfectly.
cool.
Um, When was one of the hardest times that you have laughed?
Like ever?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. There's been so many. Honestly, probably the hardest time I ever laughed was on mushrooms.
Oh, that's
Yeah,
probably a good
it's
one.
it's probably I think it was probably the time with my fiance. It was the first time he had tried them, and
Mm-hmm.
I was supposed to be kind of trip sitting,
The
but I
trip
went
sitter, yeah.
really deep, and so we even had like a past life experience together, which I don't know if you believe in past lives. It could have just been like a crazy hallucination, but both of us at the same time, when we compared notes later, realized that I was experiencing a past life version of us in Egypt, and he was and dying in his arms, and then he
Mm.
was experiencing a past life version of us as old people, and I was dying in his arms. Like
Oh, wow.
crazy.
So,
And
like, you
neither
guys have been together in multiple lives, or like that in the trip you had been.
That's what it feels like, yeah. And
Wow.
it we'd only been dating for about a month, so it was special, and we felt like it was meant to be.
Oh, yeah.
But I mean, that's kind of a side story. I'm pretty sure we laughed our brains out a little bit
Mm.
later. Yeah, because we were we were eating some salsa, and I don't know if you said you were going to try psychedelics soon, or you
Yeah, yeah.
have.
I've only ever the most psychoactive substance I've ever tried was marijuana.
Okay,
So
well
like
that I mean,
not
it can get
really.
intense. It
It
can get
can, but it
intense.
didn't. But it didn't.
Okay. Well, when you try mushrooms and you do it in all the safe ways, and I'm not a doctor, to spoil disclaimers.
Right.
Um,
Go watch your video about how
I
to do it.
there you go.
Yeah.
But food is incredible, and so we made sure to prepare like fruit, and then we had chips and salsa. And I just
Oh, nice.
specifically remember, like, it's motor skills are really hard when you're high. So I just
Mm-hmm.
remember trying so hard to eat a chip
Uh,
with salsa on it, and then I just started laughing so hard because I looked at it, I'm like, it's so good, and it's just nothing was funny. Like, there's no reason to laugh at this other than we just thought that was the
right.
funniest thing on the planet, and we just could not stop laughing. So
That's
that's
a great
probably
one. That's a
yeah.
great one. Um, there's so past life things. There's this guy, Christian Sonberg, I think is his name. I've gotten obsessed with listening to his podcast because a friend of mine he did this interview on like the non-duality podcast.
Mm-hmm.
Um, where he talked about um, being an intelligence or a spirit or an essence or something like that, and getting ready for his Earth trial, and getting into like the thing that was going to send him. And he doesn't. I haven't gotten to the part where he says this was induced by mushrooms or anything like that, so I don't have context for what prompted this experience. But he says that he was in like the tube or whatever sends you down, and he was seeing what life was going to be like, and he was seeing how hard it was going to be, and he got really scared and he backed out. And he backed out, which in his words resulted in a woman miscarrying. And
Oh.
yeah, and he saw how his fear hurt her, and so he was like,
Whoa.
I need to get the fear out of my life. Like, very strange. And so now he's on his life. I don't know what to call it, but he's doing his thing, and this is the second body and the second set of trials, I guess we would call it. But he recognizes that it is not as many good trials as he would have had if he had followed through with the first one, but he bailed on that one. So yeah, it's very, very interesting.
That
um,
is
I
interesting.
have
And here's a
no
little
idea what to say about any of that.
well, I wanted to give your listeners, viewers, another piece of homework if they're interested. I was on a TV show called Reincarnated Past Lives on Lifetime Movie Network, and it recently resurfaced on YouTube. And
Mm,
it may be titled something different, but if you just type in Reincarnated Past Lives Shalise, it'll probably pop up.
all right.
They recently reposted it, but essentially it was a hypnotherapist he specializes in regression therapy, and he took us back to past lives, and
Oh,
I
wow.
swear to you, I thought I was making everything up
Mm-hmm.
until we did the part where we come back and they tell us what they found, and
Mm-hmm.
the research, literally confirmed everything that I was saying. Like they found
Really?
the people in the places that I mentioned that I didn't even know existed. They
Mm-hmm.
found terminology. I was speaking ancient Arabic, like crazy stuff. So, if you're interested at all in past life regression, I would watch it. It's kind of fun. It was a long time ago. It was like one in, jeez, I don't know, 2014,
Okay.
2013 that we filmed it, but
Okay.
it's a fun one.
Yeah, I will. I'll get that from you so that I can put it in the description and give people more things to watch.
Cool.
I will. Okay. I feel like it's only fair to answer these tough questions with you. So the hardest time that I can think of laughing was I was at work and I was being trained. I had my favorite two coworkers, probably of all time. Not both of them are there anymore, but they're training me on a computer program that's like pretty confusing. And I was like, I just finished a semester on like neurobiology or something like that. And I had learned in that semester that if you scare somebody or somebody feels like their life is threatened, whatever happened before that will be remembered because your brain is trying to keep you alive. And so your brain is going to say, hey, last time something like this happened, you almost died. Like, hey, maybe you should
Yeah.
be paying attention, right? So I said, look, when I'm done with training, I need you guys to scare the shit out of me, like bad, because I don't want to forget this. And by the way, they didn't end up scaring me. But so it's the next day. I'm finishing up my whatever it's called. And I go, all right, I'm done. And they go, oh shit, he's done. Quick. And my girl, what's her name? I won't say her name. My coworker says to my other coworker, like, quick, finger gun him, Tracy. And we're all just like, wait, what the fuck? And then we all just start laughing so hard. And so then whenever like things got tense or anything, like during the season, we would all just like do like this to one another, like
Yeah.
stand in a triangle, and we would just die laughing again. So
Nice.
yeah. So okay. Last question. And then to be fair, I'll also try to answer this. But when was the last time that you would say that you felt what your Mormon self would have called the spirit?
Oh, the spirit. Like the warm and fuzzies.
Yeah, the warm and fuzzies, like the good spirit,
Yeah.
elevation
I
emotion, as
mean,
we now know it's called.
like every time I get on Instagram and see a cute baby video,
Mm.
I don't know. I want to have kids soon.
Uh-huh.
And so, yeah, we've been talking about having kids soon. And so we send each other like videos of babies. And every time I get all choked up, I'm like, oh, I want a baby. That's like not a very loaded example. I mean, other times, of course, when I'm recording my podcast and
Mm-hmm.
one of the guests says something really moving, or if they're recounting their experience, it's more of an empathetic feeling of the spirit where I'm
Oh yeah,
really
yeah.
moved by something that they're saying or an experience they've recounted. But yeah, and also just like my dog, and maybe that's a dumb answer, but he's so
Not a
cute
dumb
and
one.
brings me so much joy every time I look at that little face. He's
Mm.
a long-haired wiener dog, so we call him Mr. Ween. And his
Nice.
real name is Oscar Meyer, of course, but we call
Okay,
him
yeah,
Mr. Ween. And he's just the sweetest. I think animals bring so much joy.
that's amazing. I'm gonna give the audience a little bit of homework here with this one because I don't know if this is confirmed that it will work on everybody every time, but I think it will. Um, there's this show on YouTube that I watch every Monday. It's called Kill Tony. It's wild, wild. It's a bunch of people. I'll give a short synopsis of it, but a bunch of people go to a comedy show every week. There's a panel of professional comedians. The audience puts their names in the bucket, and if their name gets called, they go up. They do 60 seconds of stand up. Most of them are not professional stand up comedians. Most of them don't do very well. And then the panel will give them advice, but also make fun of them. And everybody knows that
Oh
it's
no.
that it's in good faith. You know, everybody knows that it's for a laugh. Nobody has bad feelings towards anybody. Well, so this one from a couple weeks ago, um, every comedian was bad. Every single comedian was bad. And the host, he has his three guys who he puts up every week to just kind of like give the show some structure. again, we're our this everybody watching this is gonna have so much fucking homework after this is done, because this is like a 2-hour show. But he's like, you know what? It's such a bad show. I'm taking all the good ones away and I'm pushing them till the end, and we're gonna go until we get good ones. So he starts pulling these names out of the hat, and they're like kind of getting better, kind of not. But this guy goes up. His name's Aaron Blyle. He's kind of like blowing up on YouTube right now, but he has cerebral palsy, so he can't actually talk. So he has like a Bluetooth stereo that he brings with him that's connected to his phone that has text to speak. He
Uh-huh.
puts that on the table. He puts a microphone on top of it, and then he does a routine that is hilarious. The funniest thing ever. And everybody's blown away, and everybody's like, this guy's amazing. And then they start they start going back and forth. Like, he makes fun of them, they make fun of him. Like, there's just so much positive energy in this thing, and legitimately a tear came out of my eye as I was just like, this guy
Mm.
is amazing. And without this show happening right now, like, people are amazing. Like, it was just absolutely incredible. So that was the last time that I felt it. That was a while ago. But
Oh.
yeah, no, that's a great fucking show. And but it's really long. But everybody should give it a shot, because holy shit, it's wild. So man, we somehow did an hour and 15. So
All right.
Shalise, what do you want people, we've already done like the what should they go watch that you made. Do you have any like final like
Parting
any
words.
yeah, I know you've done 4 podcasts today, and so you probably have no words left in the tank, but like, yeah, I'll just give you the last word on this one.
Oh, well, I appreciate you having me on. I really appreciate the invitation and for enlightening me on how I can be a little victimist sometimes. And telling me all the ways and giving me all the tools to better control the situation and to not be a victim. So I appreciate that. And as far as everything else goes, I mean, I always say to people, my tagline is follow your highest excitement, be conscious, and be well, because I
Mm,
think life is just about doing things that are exciting to you. Because it's in my opinion that if it feels exciting, that's some sort of divine guidance or your higher self or your inner child or
mm.
whatever makes you happy, if you want to call it God or a spirit guide or whatever it is. I feel like excitement is what drives you to your purpose. So I always say just do whatever feels exciting in any given moment. And the be conscious part is just be aware of yourself, which I guess if you're aware of yourself, you won't fall into the drama triangle. And
It's
if you're
true.
aware of yourself, it allows you to be more conscious of other people and their thoughts and opinions and emotions and helps you go about life in a healthier way, in a more peaceful way. And the be well is an obvious one. So I would say those are my
Be a
parting
whale.
words. be, be a
That's what
whale.
you mean, right?
And
An orca?
be a
Obvious.
whale.
Yeah.
Obviously.
Yeah,
Dominate the
obviously
ocean in a
that's what
peaceful way. Obviously. So those are my parting words, and thank you again for what you're doing and for the information you're putting out there for everybody to benefit from.
yes, thank you for coming on. Thank you everybody for watching, and goodbye.